Trey Lance was probably further behind than people realized. Trey Lance is greener than people realized. Trey Lance is going to need more work than people realized. And they have a roster that can win now. And if you're San Francisco, so you just said if someone gives up a 1, so maybe somebody doesn't. Let's just talk this out for a moment. Okay, so let's say they get a 2, 4, and a 6. Now you're San Francisco. Now you could say Jimmy Garoppolo is unquestionably one of the most popular and respected players in our locker room. Players love playing with him. We have him under contract this year at a very friendly $25 million cap number. And if we play with him this year and we lose him after this year, we're going to get a 3rd-round comp pick back in return.
All right. So headline that came out of that's made its way around the internet was Adam Schefter says it's not a lock that Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded, even though he says Jimmy may believe it's a lock. That was part of his quote.
Well, I think Jimmy does believe it's a lock. When you watched his last press conference for the Niners, it was a good buy. Jimmy was pretty adamant that he's done. Let's face it, the moment he traded for Trey Lance, in Jimmy's mind, my time in San Francisco is ticking. And it went a lot longer, I think, than we all expected the moment the trade happened. Because usually when a trade like that happens, you don't wait that long. And I would say in the moment the trade happened, why we kept talking about I would start Trey Lance as soon as possible was because of the recent history. It took a syringe to Tyrod Taylor. Herbert started game 2. Josh Allen started immediately. Carson Wentz, if you remember, when Teddy Bridgewater went down, they traded away Sam Bradford. Carson started. Flacco somehow got like 5 or 6 games. They inserted Lamar, and he was awesome. Mahomes was a pretty unique case. But Alex, and we've gone over this, had the best year of his career. Like Jimmy was.
Did you say Dak? I'm sorry.
I did not, but that took like 7 injuries. Dak was a 4th-round pick, though.
Yeah.
When you just talk about the high-end picks, especially guys people traded for, or just first-round picks. Baker Mayfield, started halfway through that first year. I just think now, you watch that Montana documentary, in the 80s and 90s, this would not be very abnormal at all. I think it did feel a little abnormal just at points in time in the season. Like, what are we doing? Now, ultimately, when you made the NFC Championship game, that feels like 1992, and you're like, whatever, it's fine. And it worked. Now, I think this offseason, I think you're trading them. You're looking to trade them. I am.
Yeah. We can get into Kyle's aspect of this in a separate conversation we'll have coming up, but I think they are too. I mean, I think part of what Schefter says about part of the logic he uses, right? Ari mentions the Darnold trade, a 2, 4, and a 6. And he mentions that trade. He says, would you do a 2, 4, and a 6 now? Or would you prefer to wait, let Jimmy play, and then you get a 3rd for Jimmy as a compensatory pick when you just lose him as a free agent after the 2022-2023 season? I think to me, the critical part of all of the Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo conversations go back to, I think Trey Lance isn't quote unquote ready to lead a Super Bowl champion. I don't think, but is he ready to get on the field and play? I think that's why Schefter starts by talking about that. Has Trey kind of reached the point where now the next step for him to help get himself ready is that he needs to get on the field and play? And I think, yes, that a big part of being ready to play is that. Now, I was telling you beforehand now, he's an undrafted free agent. It's not the same. Tony Romo sat for 3 years before he was ready. Parcells said to him, I was watching his Football Life on Tuesday night, like, if I put you out there right now, you get yourself killed. And part of the problem wasn't that Tony didn't know where to throw the ball or even that Tony didn't know what was happening. Tony just could not throw. Like, he was too inaccurate. And I think there's something to be said for, I do buy you can get better watching and learning. I think the problem is for the Niners, their quarterback has been a plus until he hasn't been. And it's like, if you're not going to go, they're not a team that's trying to make the playoffs for the first time. They've been to the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game. And I don't think their quarterback is quite good enough.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. And which is, I can understand why you go, so how could you argue against Jimmy? Like, these are all rolls of the dice. Sometimes you catch some breaks. We easily could have won that game. We could have been in the Super Bowl. We could have beat the Bengals. And, what the hell? Which I think there's something to that. But I also think your team needs to be better. Like, their team needs to be better. Their entire team needs to be better. And I think using some of the money that they would otherwise be paying Jimmy Garoppolo to make their team better gives them the best shot to eventually try to get back and win a Super Bowl.
Well, I know this guy. If someone is offering the 49ers a 2, and it's a double whammy, it's not just a second-round pick. It's $27 million off your cap. So I get a second-round pick and $27 million for a quarterback that I've invested all this into. It's a no-brainer because eventually you're going to have to dive into the deep end. And you're never going to be fully comfortable diving in the deep end unless somehow, like, Jimmy rolled back. You didn't have the $27 million to play with, so it's much harder to build your team. Jimmy misses 7-8 games, and Trey plays a bunch, and he improves, and you're thinking, like, God, we should have just taken the bait. Not even the bait, just a second-round pick. Once you hear the Sam Darnold compensation, you really think to yourself, maybe the 49ers aren't going to get a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. Well,
now, Sam was cheaper. Remember, it essentially was like 2 years, $30 million. But Sam's not good.
Well, they had to pick up you had the difficult position of trying to pick up his option.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they immediately did it, and it essentially was 2 years, $30 million. But he's a bottom 5 or 6 quarterback last year. We're clearly, like, if Sam Darnold was on the 49ers, I'd assume he'd be better than he was on the Panthers, but he's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. He was pretty terrible whenever I watched him
if the Niners had done that trade, it would have been a disaster.
Assuming he feels like he would have looked a little better, but he still has some major flaws.
I think he would have looked a little better, but is he better than Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't think he is.
Yeah,
I don't think he is. So
because you probably would have got rid of Jimmy for Sam, who was just more like had already played, and you just would have inserted him. I give them credit. Like, this is not. I was someone banging the table. Like, I would go get Sam Darnold. So it's easy to judge after the fact about the moves, but right now the Jimmy move for Trey Lance, even if Trey struggles, to me, and we'll get into Kyle here in a second, but I think you got to trade him. I think you do, especially if you can get a second-round pick for the $27 million. Part of it, you see some of these names, like, can you go land J.C. Jackson? Can you go land some defensive and offensive linemen? Can you just go land some people to help build your team? Part of what the Chiefs, I was thinking about today, the Chiefs had a bunch of firepower. Now, it didn't all work. Remember, they paid Sammy Watkins $16 million a year. The next year, they go get Honey Badger. But they had money to play with because their quarterback wasn't making that much money.
Yeah.
The Texans were kind of the same. Remember, they went to go get Laramie Tunsil. Like, they had a rookie quarterback, or I mean, a guy on a rookie contract that was playing quarterback. Obviously, the most valuable ever is like Dak or Russell when they're third and fourth round picks. But when you're a first round pick and you're the starting quarterback like Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, those 3 or 4 years, your value is immense. And you're the most valuable player in the NFL, right?
Well, yeah.
Like Justin Herbert's value. You're a top 5 quarterback making $5 million. Does it get any better than that?
No.
That's why the Chargers get shit on. It's like, well, you went 7-9 and then again 9-8 and missed the playoffs. Like, you can't do that with this guy playing this well.
Right.
And that's where the Niners know. I mean, if you gave Kyle Justin Herbert, they would fucking go 15-2. And I'm not even saying that Trey Lance is going to sniff being that good, but if he's just solid and the stuff that we've already talked about that he can do that Jimmy can't, and then kind of learns on the job, his value is even greater because part of it where Jimmy's value, where you could nitpick it, like even last year, like he was making $26 million. And there were stretches of football where you're like, he ain't a $26 million player right now. Now, he ultimately made up for it, but like 26 ain't nothing. 26 ain't like 12, right?
No, but I mean, most quarterback, 26 is also not expensive for a quarterback if he's your starting, NFC championship or conference championship level quarterbacks, guys that have gotten you there, not necessarily. Those guys are about to be a lot more expensive than $26 million. Guys that don't get you there are about to be more expensive.
Well, think about the Final Four. Stafford was making like 35 or 38. Mahomes makes like 100. Burrow is the number 1 overall pick, and if Burrow was a free agent, what would he get? $45 million a year?
Yeah, I mean the biggest contract that the biggest contract that a quarterback's ever gotten. He would. I mean, think about this. What if the Niners had never brought in another quarterback and right now had not had any interest in another quarterback? They're not about to draft a quarterback. Their situation is this: Jimmy Garoppolo coming off an NFC championship game with 1 year left on his contract. Let's say they play it out. They don't extend him. They go to another NFC championship game. How much does Jimmy Garoppolo get on his next contract?
Think you franchise tag him?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he'd get more than
if Trey Lance wasn't on this team and Jimmy's backup was just some random, it was
Jordan
okay,
Love.
But yeah. Would they extend Jimmy Garoppolo right now?
I think they would.
That'd be insane.
But what
You're right.
you know
It's
what I
hard-
mean?
it's hard
Or
to-
they try
it's
to
hard to think
trade
about.
for another guy. Whatever. They tried like trading for Kirk Cousins to pay him $15 million more isn't the solution.
No.
So, but what Schefter said, it all starts with how ready is Trey Lance. Because you are not going to convince any coach, oh, you have to do this because you have to do it, if he doesn't think the next guy is, quote unquote, ready to play. And the whole world right now is debating whether or not Trey Lance is ready to play. Everyone's got a take on it.
But this goes back to all these young quarterbacks aren't truly ready to play. But through playing is how you improve. It's like
Well, of
Josh
course.
Allen. He became so good because of what he put in. Eventually, you got to get out there. And I think it's fair to say that I think what they felt being around Trey is that it was a little too much, which is very understandable. It was too much for Aaron Banks, who came from Notre Dame, multi-year starter as a guard. And they're like, yeah, he ain't ready. So what do you think? It comes from a small school quarterback who, as Schefter hammered home, did not play. I mean, he technically got a game, but no one counts that.
Central Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, who even knows? What was like a normal week of practice? Like, everyone be here Sunday at 1 o'clock, getting ready for the week. Like, what a weird. It's like, guys, I'm not even at school.
No.
Wasn't part of the story too? Is like Trey just helped out his guys so they could push the year back or something? Like traded everyone.
I thought part of it was Trey agreed to play in the game so that other people would get a look.
Maybe that was it. Yeah,
I thought.
because I think Trey had already quote unquote gone pro.
Yeah.